Hello, good afternoon, viewers at home. And compliment of the season. This is the year 2025, and this is going to be the first lecture on our educational series. I remain Omega Bio-Edutainment. Uh, Today, we are coming on a new ground that has to do with understanding human microorganism interactions and ecology. Before today, the last lecture we had was understanding microbial communities. Understanding microbial communities. And in that, we actually look at what microbial community is. We look at different case studies of a microbial community. The first one was that we considered soil microorganisms, and we look at nitrogen fixing bacteria that existed in a kind of mycorrhizal association with a fungus. Okay, therefore, thereafter we also look at the gut microbiota, that is the microorganisms population that lives in the body, then we now look at a case where there is no balance between the microorganism population in the human gut and that of the human. So we look at what could be the results, this resultant effects of a kind of imbalance, and we also uh, saw that it could also lead to disease condition. So, and after that, we also look at marine microbial communities, whereby we consider some of the cyanobacteria like chlorocucus, which are very abundant, and they play very significant role in recycling carbon to the organism that could be aquatic organism in deep ocean. Then after that, we also consider case where microorganisms also exist in a community to form what is called biofilm. Then after that, we look at biofilm as a very complex but very structured community, whereby you see microorganisms existing in close proximity with each other, thereby playing a key role in attaching themselves to hard surfaces like what we see in human, in the teeth, in medical equipment, in pipes, and so on and so forth like that. We also were able to differentiate it into two: uh, man-made, for example, the case we can see in pipes as well as medical equipment, and that of one that is natural, the one we can see and notice in rivers and lakes. So then on that day we concluded with the final thoughts on microorganisms that exist in a very extreme environment, like in what we have in microorganism that lives in the hot springs, those ones that live in the deep sea, and those ones that also live in salty and hydrothermal vents. And we also consider a case of thermophilic bacteria like Thermus acaticus that thrive very well in a high temperature area, and that is exactly what made them to be very useful in PCR, that is a polymerase chain reaction, PCR, whereby they are being used an enzyme, for tagged polymerase. So that was what we were able to do, and that was the final touch we had on understanding microbial community and how they can be used, and they are kind of an interrelationship. So just like I said, today we are coming on a very different ground, and that will be in furtherance of our understanding microbial community. And this time around, it is going to be the microbial community in human. That is why we are going to talk about microbes population or microbe interaction. Okay, microbe human microbe interaction. So we want to understand, so human microbe relationship. We want to look at their interactions and ecology, the ecology of human microbe human microbe relationship. Okay, now you see, we need to know certain there are certain things that we actually need to know about this. The first one is that you should know, why are we interested in knowing this? That is, what will be the objective of this our trying to know human microbe interaction? The first thing is that once we are able to know the interrelationship between human and microorganisms, this one will help us in a very long way to know. So the objective number one is to be able to know and to study the to know the nature. That's the objective. We want to know the nature of human microbes relationship. Human microbes relationship, we want to know it by understanding the intricacy of that relationship. Then number two, we want to know, we want to understand, to be able to understand how human microbe relationship could help in maintaining balance, that is in human body. That is a condition we call homeostasis. Okay, so to understand how human microbe relationship could help in maintaining balance, that is our body balance, maintaining body balance, and recognize their roles in public health. And whenever we look at a public health, so we are indirectly talking about diagnosis, control, and treatments. Diagnosis, control, and treatment of infections, especially e.g., that is in a case that we now have a case that is called dysbiosis. Biosis. So that is a case of imbalance in the microbial population in any given environment. And then the last objective of this same topic is to help us to be able to uh, understand the dynamism of the ecosystem, the dynamism, or what is called the complexity of the ecosystem. So, and when we talk of the ecosystem this time around, we are indirectly referring to the guts, the GIT, that is gastro intestinal tract. We are looking at we are also looking at in respiratory tract and on the skin as well. So we want to actually look at how dynamic could the relationship between human, that is man, and the population of microorganisms in all this area, so that we'll be able to now identify different ways by which we do. Then number 4, that is going to be the last. We will also look at we look at a kind of the we will look at what is called, that is the overall, to know okay, let me say, not to know, to recommend, to recommend the way out, such as antibiotic, what is called antibiotic stewardship. We will also go stewardship. So such as antibiotic stewardship, combination therapy. So if you say antibiotic stewardship, that is the rational use of antibiotics, because we are going to see it. Overuse of drug or misuse of drug is one of the factors that can help, that can disrupt the balance of human microbe relationship. Okay, combination therapy. So we are going to finally look at that. But now, before we go on, now, one thing that is very, very certain and that you should know is that human microbe relationship can be in form of a cooperative, and at the same time can also going to be in form of a competition. So that means there are sometimes that you will see that microorganisms will exist in symbiotic relationship, in mutualistic relationship with human. And sometimes you now see some conditions whereby microorganisms will also want to seek for shelter, want to seek for protection, even in human body. So all this is very, very important that we should know. But you should know, as what we have been saying in our past videos, you should know that microorganisms are very, very, their population are very, very diverse, and it is in this same diversity that they will tend to exist with another partner. So they will tend to collaborate or cooperate, and they also tend to also compete. So we are going to see cases of all this, but you should know that the marriage between human and microorganism is a marriage of for better for worse. It is a marriage that even death cannot even pass, because even after the death of an organism, you still expect that microorganism will continue to thrive in their own way. They will continue to thrive because they will end up in the soil, and they will also help the cycling of that uh, materials. Okay, so now let's now go straight into so on in this topic we are going to consider three very important subtopics. The first one is that we are going to look at human microbiome, that is human microbiome okay, which can be regarded as an ecosystem. Human uh, human biome relationship, we can regard it as a ecological system. Okay, so we are going to look at it. Then thereafter we also look at what are the basic characteristics of the human microbiome. So we'll look at the population of microorganisms that are found in human. So what are the basic characteristics? What must they possess so as to make sure that they continue to exist in that environment? Then number three, in order to be able to achieve all these objectives, we are still going to look at the human microbe interaction as a kind of a key, the role they play in public health. So there are key roles in human health. That is, what role do they play in maintaining the health of their host, which is a human? Okay, so then we are going to consider case studies in each of these interaction. So we are going to consider uh, case studies in each of these cases. Then the last thing that we are going to also bother ourselves with, second to the last, that is the next thing we will look at is we will now look at the disruption. That is, we look at this biosis and diseases. Do they have anything in common? So we are going to look at this. Don't forget that I told us that this biosis is a state of imbalance in the microbial population in an ecosystem. Okay, so then we will now look at the final of it all. We are going to look at the public health and the disease control. Okay, so after the microorganism must have existed in a kind of interrelationship whereby human is offering certain benefits, okay, or they continue to exist in an ecological system. So we are going to look at the public health implication and how all this can be controlled. Don't forget what I've said so far. I have said that in this topic we are going to consider the objective. One of the major reasons of this same topic is to know, because whatever this topic is, human microbe interactions and ecology. So that is, in a point, what is the ecological perspective? What sense can you make as an ecologist or as a microbiologist? What can be the implication, the ecological implication of human microbe relationship? So, and why are we so interested in this topic? Why are we so interested? I have actually told us that one of the first reason, the first objective that we want to actually derive from this is to know, and to recognize, to identify the nature of human microbe relationship. So that's the first key, the first objective. We want to know, we want to understand, we want to identify what is going to be the nature of human microbes relationship. And the second thing is that we actually want to understand, how human microbe interaction could actually assist us in maintaining balance, that is, in maintaining body balance, especially in a case of homeostasis. So, and that is a condition whereby there is a complete interaction between human, or between microorganisms in human guts, and making sure that the body continue to exist in a very balanced order. So don't forget that sometimes, just like I told us, that this relationship between human and microorganism could just be that the one that is going to be in form of cooperation, and another one that is going to be in form of competition. But whichever one, I have told us that the human microorganism relationship or interaction is something that must continue to be. It must be forever, because we cannot live without them. Don't forget that microorganisms, okay, we are going to look at that anyway under human microbiomes. We are going to look at that. So and in case there is an imbalance in the interaction, that is, in the population, if the population of microorganisms in human gut is such that maybe that of is unstable, it's not at equilibrium, so, and that is exactly what is called dysbiosis. So we are going to understand how human microbiome could help, could assist in maintaining balance, and could also assist in also restoring balance. We are going to see this. Then number 3, we want to know the dynamism. It must something that must not be stable. It is a highly dynamic. Dynamic in the sense that sometimes you see the population of microorganisms that is going to grow, that is, it is going to be more, and sometimes you will see it that it's going to take place in such a way that it must continue to be beneficial. It must continue to be dynamic. It is not stable. it is not constant. It doesn't mean that when you get into the gut, and by the time you are now able to get to the gut and you do some microbial analysis, or maybe you now take antibiotic and you now discover that microorganisms in the gut, because they have caused diseases, and because you have taken antibiotic, you just think that that is going to be forever. No, the relationship, the interrelationship between human and the microorganism in human body must, and it is always very, very dynamic. It is unstable. It is unstable. So it is something that depending on temperature, depending on the pH, depending on nutrition, depending on a lot of stress, sometimes can also determine what is going to be the population of microorganisms that you will find in human body at a specific time. And that is the reason why we must continue to make sure that one way or the other, that the relationship, the interrelationship between human and microorganism must be the one that is going to be beneficial to. And how can we make that? We can make that with what is in the objective 4, which has to do with recommending what is called antibiotic stewardship, as well, is such that that is the rational use of drugs, rational use of antibiotics. You do not just take antibiotics anyhow. It must be something that is recommended. Even something that is recommended, you should make sure that you use it in the right proportion at the right time, so that one way or the other, you should not overuse. So we are going to see all this, and basically at the end of this lecture, I want to believe that these 4 objectives must be achieved. So now going to consideration of human microbiome or human microbes interrelationship. We are going to consider it under 5 broad subtopics. And the first one is that we are going to look at a human microbiome as an ecological system. It's not just something that we'll just look at it for looking at it for looking sake. No, it's not going to be like that. We are going to observe it in the perspective of human microbiome interrelationship as a typical ecological system. That is, whatever you can expect in an ecological system, maybe elsewhere, not a kind of interrelationship between human and microorganism this time around. So we are going to look at it in that. Then number 2, the second thing we are going to also look at is we will also look at what are the characteristics, the basic characteristics of a human microbiome interrelationship. So that is, if human microorganism relationship must be the one that must continually coexist, what are the factors? What are the prerequisites that the organisms, each organism, be it human, be it because both human and microorganism, they have gotten some roles to play. They have gotten different roles to play in maintaining it. And if they cannot maintain it, that is when there's going to be problem. So we are going to look at the basic characteristics of human microbiome relationship. Okay. Then the third one, we will also look at human microbiome interactions. What are the key roles? What are the key roles that must be played, or that are being played, continually being played by microorganisms? So, and that's when we shall be considering several, like four, let me say, in each case, under each point, we are going to consider case studies. Okay, then the fourth thing we are going to also consider is a state of imbalance. State of imbalance in microbial population in or on human. So what is the implication of this? So we are going to look at it, and can there be any relationship, or can there be anything that if we want to compare imbalance, which is dysbiosis, and disease, can there be any relationship? We are going to consider that, and we'll look at what's going to be as a public health practitioner this time around. And the next thing is that we are going to consider the public health and disease control. We'll consider the public health and disease control. That is, what we are saying in essence is that in case there is any of this, what should be the implication of that? In carrying out our recommendation, that is, we want to recommend the way out, and which has to do with antibiotic stewardship, the rational use of drugs. So what could be the public health and disease control strategies that we can use in case of for understanding and also maintaining the healthy relationship of human hosts, as well as with his human, with his microbial population. So we are going to see all this as we go on. So don't forget, that's the reason why that is being displayed for us on the board, so that we'll be able to actually take time to see what we also have the outline of what is expected of us in this topic. Okay, now we will start picking them one after the other, and the first one we are going to look at is the human microbiome relationship. That is as an ecological system. So we are going to look at it. So don't forget that human microbiotic relationship is something that must continue to exist. Something that must continue to exist. So looking at so that's why the first objective, don't forget that in addressing the first objective, which has to do with identification, identify the nature of human microbiome relationship. That is the first objective. So we want to look at human microbiome as interactions, as a typical ecological system. So, and what is actually expected in any ecological system is that that system must continue to maintain a state of balance. It must continue to maintain a state of equilibrium. Every member of that ecological system must continue to play his or her own role. Now, we want to look at the nature. Let's first of all understand the nature. Okay. So the first thing to actually say about the nature is that microorganism in this environment, the nature is that microorganism, that is microbes here, there are trillion, they are in diversity, they exist in their diverse form, such as, so that is, you do not find only bacteria. No, you don't find only bacteria. You also have other types of microorganisms there. you have viruses, you have you have protozoa, you have others that will continue to exist. So that is the fourth one is that the human microbiome is a diverse community of microorganisms. That's the first thing. So which include viruses, which include, that is, it's not only one, which include viruses, bacteria, sometimes you see bacteria, then sometimes you also see fungi, even you see archaea. There are some archaea, members of archaea that are natural. They exist in human microbiology, microorganism relationship. Okay, so that is number one. Then number two is that the human microbiome interaction is complex. I've said that it's very, very complex. Not only that it is complex, it is well structured and highly significant. It is highly significant. So don't say that maybe we do not need them. We need them. We need them. Then apart from that, they exist. They are in trillions. That is microbial community, the microorganisms, microbial population. Not only that they are diverse, microbial population is 10 times higher than the population of the cell of the host, which is the host is human, of their host. So microorganisms exist in their trillions. They exist in trillions, and don't forget that if they now exist in trillions, that means and the cells in the body is not up to a trillion. That is telling you that when you pick up a cell, whenever you pick up a cell from human, you just discover that you do not find only one type of microorganism there. You find billions of them. You find them in their high numbers. So to the level that sometimes it could be 10 times, it could be 100 times, sometimes it could even be a million times than that. So then apart from that, you also find them inhabiting on our skin. You find them on the skin. Okay, you find them in tracts. Okay, you find them in the urinogenital tract. You find them on the respiratory tract as well. They also inhabit the respiratory tract. Okay, they find them more in the guts. You find them more in the guts, and they also exist on mucous membrane. Don't forget, for some of you that are at higher level studying immunology, you will really understand what the function of a mucous membrane could be. What could be the function of a mucous membrane? They are involved in immune response of the host. Immune response of the host. Okay, so the nature. Then the last point we will talk about is that they must there must be a state of equilibrium between human and their host, the microorganism and microbes. So, and that population, that state of equilibrium must not be disrupted. It must not be disrupted because we have maintenance or maintaining of constant temperature, body temperature. That is what is called homeostasis. That is what is called homeostasis. Okay, that is very, very important. So this is going to be the nature of human microbiome interaction. So seeing it as an ecological system. Don't forget that I said ecological system or the ecological interrelationship in any ecosystem must be diverse. It must not be made of just one species or one types of microorganism. So the first one is that the human microbiome interaction must exist in it is a diverse community of microorganisms which include viruses existing with bacteria, coexisting with fungi, coexisting with other microorganisms. So it is that's why we said it is diverse. Then another thing is that the human microbiome interaction is complex, very, very complex. Sometimes you might not actually understand, and it is very, very difficult to predict what it is going that level of interaction should be. So but one thing is that they must continue to exist as and maintain that state of balance. It is also well structured and very, very significant to human, and also very significant to the microorganism. Then another thing is that the microbial population in or on human. So if I say in human, that means those ones that are living inside human. Oh, then those ones that are on, that is the external, like the skin. So than the population of the cell, because they exist in trillions. Okay. Then they also inhabit several ecological niches of human. In human, we have also recognized different level of niche in human. Some of these microorganisms live on skin. Some of them prefer to stay in the urinogenital tract. Some will inhabit the respiratory tract. Some will inhabit the gut. Some also inhabit the immune producing cells like the mucous membrane. So it is the ecological niches is varied. So we want to see that the ecological niches here vary. It's varied. So because different ecological niche with the requirement or the prerequisite of the microorganism or the host to be able to survive. Then you should also know that the nature is not the nature of a human microbiome relationship must be a kind of equilibrium. There must be maintenance. There must be agreement that they will continue to maintain a state of equilibrium. If they cannot maintain state of that equilibrium, you know exactly what is going to be the implication. The implication is going to be such that it's going to result into dysbiosis, it's going to result into diseases, and you know what that will be the implication of that. Okay, so before we now go to the next one, which has to do with basic characteristics of the human microbiome interaction. So please, you have time to jot down what is going to be on the that is displayed on the screen. Then don't forget that I have said it maybe earlier, that 2025, this is a new year. 2025 is such that each topic we are going to take, each topic we are going to take, underneath we are going to have a self practice question, self practice multiple choice questions that will actually help you to be able to prepare for any exam that is going to be set on each of these topics. So that is telling you that immediately after today's lecture, we are going to also take this. I want to encourage you to participate in that assessment. So, and it will be displayed in the comment section. And don't forget that you also need, because your in the comment section, that's where we have a kind of feedback about your understanding of this. So it is in the comment section that we can actually affect your opinion about the educational series, about any topic that is related to what we have been doing on the Omega Bio-Edutainment educational series. Oh, so don't forget that just like I said that what we have done so far now is to actually look at human microbiome relationship as an ecosystem. So, which has to do, the first thing has to do with understanding the nature. The nature is so diverse because it contains a population of different organisms that are not even in the same group. We have a group of bacteria. We have group of bacteria coexisting with viruses. Some of them coexisting with fungi and other like archaea. So then the second thing is that the interaction is so complex. It's so complex, even though it is well structured and highly significant. Highly significant because microorganism cannot do without it. Then the same thing, the human host cannot also do without that. So that's why we said the relationship between human and the microorganism must be the one that it is going to be a must. It is a form of a cooperation, although it can also be in form of a competition as well. Okay, so then we also look at the population, that the population of micro, in fact it is not even possible, you cannot eradicate or remove entirely microorganism from human. It is not possible because you have them inhabiting in trillion, existing in trillions with our cell, competing with nutrients, competing with pH, so it is such that it is a population that is that is unpredictable, and that. Then you should also know that the ecological niches of the is such that it varies. You have some microorganisms that inhabit the skin, some of them inhabit urinogenital tract, and some of them will inhabit respiratory tract. You find some in the gut, and whereas some live in the mucous membrane. Then I also said, as a kind of the last point under that, that the nature of human microbiome interaction should be a state of maintaining equilibrium between the human cell population as well as the population of the microorganism, in order to continue to maintain a constant temperature, as we see in the case of homeostasis. So that is going to be what we want to discuss briefly under human microbiome interaction, looking at this kind of interaction as a typical example of what is ecological niches, I mean ecological system. So I am afraid that we might just be able to do the second. So maybe the other one from third and fourth and fifth. We are going to have it in the other video. So, but for now, we are going to treat the second one, which has to do with recognizing the basic characteristics of the human microbiome relationship. That is point number 2 of a kind of a subtopic that we need to consider here. So don't forget that human microbiome relationship is such that is something that must continue to exist. It must exist. So let's go to the second part, which has to do with what characteristics we will ask ourselves. What are the basic characteristics of a human microbiome relationship? What are the typical characteristics? What must be known? What do we need to know? What must bear in mind? Even microorganisms and those ones that are the player in that kind of interrelationship, that is human and microorganisms. What must they have in mind? Okay, so that they will continue to be. So that is number 2. I said, what are the basic characteristics? The basic characteristics of human microbiome or microbes relationship. Okay, microbiome relationship. So what are the typical characteristics and what are the points that we need to bear in mind? The first thing is that we must bear in mind what is often called diversity and colonization. We have to be aware of this diversity and colonization. So don't forget that I've said it in my earlier points, that the first thing that you must recognize is that microorganisms do not exist in isolation. They exist in their diverse form, depending on the prevailing condition that they find themselves. So if the condition is such that, and one thing that you should know is that this microorganism must make sure they obey the law of survival of the fittest. That is, wherever they find themselves, they have made up their mind that they will continually, no matter whatever is going to take, that they will continually to survive. They cannot survive. You see, most of the microorganisms that you found in the on human or in human that cause infection in human, they are the most advanced, because they are the one that is actually being successful in the most advanced in the evolutionary tree. Man is the most advanced, you should know. So that means it is also going to take an advanced microorganism to be able to survive in an advanced organism, which is a human. Okay, so that is number 1. So I said about diversity and colonization. Just like I said, you should know that the sites, for example, those that we have, you find them in the skin. Those that you find them living on the skin, that means they must have been able to adapt themselves to all the conditions, all the physiological conditions, including pH. If the pH is acidic on the skin, that means the organisms that will also, the microorganisms that will also live there and survive there must be able to tolerate acidic environments. And if it is also basic, that is telling you that they cannot, that organism might not be able to exist in any other place better than on the skin. So because they have been able to tolerate all the conditions that will have actually eliminated others, that others not to survive in that environment, but because they are able to survive, that means they are able to cover, they are able to overcome all the stress that we can actually think of. So that is why we said that organisms that inhabit any or a particular place must be the organism that is ready or that has actually conquered that. So you should be able to know that. Then some of them that you find, okay, for example, those that you find on the skin means that they must be able to tolerate acidic pH, that is unstable. Sometimes you find the pH on the skin to be acidic, sometimes you find it to be what? Also basic, depending on the weather condition. And don't forget the characteristics, or let me say the roles and responsibilities of the skin. You know what it means. Then on the surface of the skin, you should know you are not expecting only one organism, only one bacteria there. They exist in close association with others. Okay, then so that means they must be able to tolerate the pH. They must also be able to tolerate the oxygen level, because the oxygen level on the skin is going to be high. That means they must be oxygen tolerant. So those ones that cannot tolerate, that is, they must be what? Aerobic. Those ones that are anaerobic means that they cannot live inside or on the surface of the skin. They would rather choose a different colony entirely, or a different niche entirely. So the aerobic one, you find them on the skin. So if you are able to isolate any organism from the skin, that should be a pointer that that organism should be able to be what? Aerotolerant. Must be able to tolerate high oxygen content, must be able to tolerate the variation, kind of unstable in pH value. Then they must also be able to tolerate temperature, because the temperature on the skin is such that it also varies, as well as moisture, that is the humidity, as well as moisture. Then again, I have said those ones that will live in the guts, the first thing is that they must be anaerobic, that is, they must be aerotolerant. Okay, they must be aerotolerant, no, aero intolerance. So then apart from that, that means they must be able to tolerate high acidic content. High acidic content, as you have it in the gut, it's going to be like that. So that is the first thing that you need to know. You need to be aware of what is called diversity and colonization. And the second aspect of it, colonization, is that their population is going to be more. Is going to be more. So because they have been able to adapt, and because they have been able to adapt and colonize that area, you see, colonization is just a kind of a let me say a kind of a phenomenon, or is a condition whereby you found certain organisms, you find them existing in high population in a particular place. That means on the skin, if you know, you see that you have more of a staphylococcus epidermis, and you find them more, and you find them that they have been able to colonize. Once they are able to exist tolerate all this. That means they will exist in their high population. They will survive in that high population, and that's what we mean by diversity. So the second thing that you must also know is what is called niche specialization. Niche specialization. So this is also very similar to the first point. First point is that organism that you are able to find in any particular area means that that organism is a specialist, is a specialist to survive in that same environment, just like I said. So for example, helicobacter pylori, helicobacter pylori is a bacteria that can tolerate high acidic content, and that's why you find them as being acidic tolerant in large intestine. Large intestine. So you find, sorry, in small intestine. In small intestine, find them more in small intestine. And you know what role small intestine do in the in digestive okay. So another thing that you also need to